Right, folks. Well, you just heard the new single, Everywhere You Are, of course, from China. And I am now joined on the phone, all the way from Switzerland, the man himself, Mr. Eric St. Michaels. Welcome to Rock Posers Roulette.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for having me on.
I tell you, it's a pleasure to finally get to chat to you on the show. We've known each other a few years now by hook and by crook, but to finally get you on the show, for me, it is an immense pleasure. And it's also an immense pleasure to see China back with a new album.
Yeah, it's finally nice to have something to talk about with you. I mean, we get to chat about other people's stuff all the time, but now it's fun to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, for those of you not aware, China's new album, We Are the Stars, is out. It won't be out in the UK until early next year, but there are chances to sample the album because the label's put out a little clip over on YouTube, which I will put a link out to, so you can have samples of the album, etc. And, well, obviously I'd already heard part of the album before the release, courtesy of your good self, and all I can say is, I mean, it is a slight change in direction for the band. It is for the good, in my own humble opinion, and Christ, everybody knows my opinions. But it is a fresh sound, and obviously you had somebody at the helm for this who had an awful lot of input into the album. If you'd like to tell us about that.
Yeah, well, starting with Tommy, the producer, I would have to say that the final stamp of the sound is him all the way. You know, and the way he. You know, we were confined by budget, and it was also time because he's on tour with Alice Cooper, so we have to work within the windows. He had breaks, and, you know, that way of working was new for us because the last record we did, we went in the studio with the whole band and, you know, really kind of just did it the way you do. I mean, went in prepared and everything, but the way Tommy had to work with us was we were really only in the studio for the drums.
Okay.
Right? And then back again in a mix studio for the final mix. But almost all the other overdubs, except for maybe one or two vocals that I did while the drummer was taking a break, were done, you know, at home studios, private studios, and then all put back together again. And this way of working was kind of different for the band because everybody sort of had to do more homework. Do you know what I mean? It was a lot sort of more learning, more pre-production, everybody getting their parts together, and then bam, you know. And this guy, he's tough. He doesn't let you know. I mean, I would get things relatively quickly, and he would still say, "Oh, what were you waiting for?" You know. I mean, I don't know if that's his way of being sarcastic or joking around or something, but I took it as a challenge, you know, getting in there and knocking out a vocal really quick and getting the stuff done. And we spent most of our time, every member of the band sort of set up at home to be able to work with the track on their part and get it right and then go and record it with him. And it made for a faster recording process. I'm sure Tommy had a lot of work putting it all together, but it actually was a wise decision because we were able with such a small budget to make a record that really sounds great, and I'm happy about that.
I'm guessing because of Tommy being that way inclined work-wise, he's probably dragged a lot more out of you guys than you would have otherwise brought to the record.
And I respect him enough to let him punch me like that. You know, I'm always open-minded to it. You know, the trick of being a singer that works well with producers is giving the producer what he's hearing and then, you know, what he wants to hear.
Yeah.
And trusting that and then giving what you do. Cause I mean, let's say that you're there anyway because of what you do, you know? And this guy, because we had worked together in the past, we had worked together years ago, he sort of knew what I was able to do back then. I was much more of a screamer back then. You know, weren't we all, right? And but now, you know, I had gone through all these years of club dates and stuff like that, and my voice just got thicker and fatter and lower, and you know, but he was able to pull maybe the right the right key, bring the songs into the right key for me, so that when I punch it and I really go for it, it sounds right. And that's what I was very pleased about on this record. And I never minded him beating up on me at all. And not that he would be, I'm overdoing it right now, overstating it, but when he was really putting pressure on me to give him, more of this or more of that or less of this or less of that, I was really trusting him, and I was happy because the pre-production told me that it was the right thing to do.
Right.
At home, practicing it and recording it, I would record it like I would do a mock recording session. He would send me the track after, we would. This is way after all the song demos and all that stuff. I mean, this is way down the road. Then came the actual production files,
Right.
And working against those, I would do like mock sessions at home, and I would see where I was having trouble and work on those. But then when I got in there with him, things would change. Absolutely, he would, where I would do the song maybe one way, we'd instantly change it to another way. But that changing and that sudden shock all of a sudden made for some really great stuff. When I listen to the record and I listen to myself singing, I really hear the influence of him directing. Should I say directing?
Oh, I get you. Yeah.
Yeah, and people have told me now this is the best they've ever heard me singing. So who am I to argue? I'm just thankful, actually.
Well, jumping back in a time machine for a minute, we're going to go right back. And a question I've never asked you in all the years is, how on earth did you end up singing in China?
Oh, man. Alan Reef, God rest his soul. He was the security guy, and he was working he was the tour manager's security guy for Kiss.
Right.
And he was working with Paul and Gene, and then he somehow got to be tour manager for China. Because I guess he was working underneath a big company that had many artists, and all of a sudden the call came in from, I guess, the label or management of China, and he went to work with China. Now all of a sudden he's going to work from Kiss over to China, and they get out on the road. They're out touring with Yngwie Malmsteen, and the singer just seems to not be into it. Somehow, there was some great. I've seen stuff. I've seen some of the video from some of them shows, and they were great. I don't know how that all fell apart, but somehow it fell apart, and they needed a singer. And he thought of me because Paul Stanley had been producing my band, and in New York City, and it was kind of like this thing that he knew about, and he didn't know me personally, but he knew about me through Paul.
Right.
And just thought, wow, why don't we try and get this guy in there, And so he called me up and said, I'm so-and-so from so-and-so. You might know me because I used to work with Paul. And then I got actually a call from Paul's office saying that the guy is who he says he is. That's always important that somebody is. Yeah. Before you get on an airplane and go to a foreign country, it's good to know that the person is the person he says he is. Anyway, so Alan Reef was in New York, and he came to my house. I was living in a little apartment over in the West Village, and he said, "Look, this band, these guys, this situation. I see you there. Come with me." And I'm married at the time, so I looked to my wife, who's Swedish and European and loves the whole idea of me getting some work over in Europe. Says, "Why don't you go?" Because we had no children at the time.
Right.
So I said, "Yeah, why not?" Because this project I had actually been working on with Tommy Henriksen. This project didn't get off the ground. He went back to working with Warlock, and I was painting apartments, and I thought, wow, they're gonna pay my flights, they're gonna give me a chance. It was sort of like a very expensive audition. I mean, fly me from New York to Switzerland, and check me out. So I had some time to do it. I got the CD. I couldn't really sing very loud in my apartment, so I went and rented for a week, like a little rehearsal space in the city, and went there every night and practiced as many of the songs as I could. The singer had a much higher voice than mine.
Yeah.
So and it was also very overproduced. Like, I mean, they worked on that record for like 9 months, So,
Right.
Anyway, I did the best job I could on this stuff, and got on a plane with him, went over there, and we had like a hilarious stuff, because he was there actually also to round up gear for the band. The band wanted to buy on 48th Street a bunch of gear and stuff. So we were going through the airport, and this guy Alan was a big guy, really big guy, and juggling all this equipment. I mean, stuff in racks and keyboards and samplers and guitar amps, and we get on a plane, we go over there, and it was just a fluke. But I remember that there was some kind of cheerleader competition going on in Europe, and we got on a plane with something like 50 cheerleaders, and we just had a hilarious time. I don't know if you remember when you could smoke and drink on a plane, but
Yeah.
were in those days, and it was just a ripping party, like out of some sort of Austin Powers movie. So the adventure had begun. I'm thinking this is all great, and I get off the plane, and before you know it, everybody's being really nice to me, and what turns out is they had already put my picture in the paper before I got there.
Oh.
And because the band, it was like high in the charts and everything, and it was a real important thing that they were changing the singer, because I don't think the other singer had ever actually played a live gig in Switzerland. To be honest with you, I don't know anybody who's ever seen, any other singer in Switzerland other than me, because the first singer left very shortly into the first tour, and then the second singer left very shortly into the first tour that they did, and then I joined the band, and actually, I didn't leave for any other reason that I had no working permission. The band was out of money, and I had to go back to the States. That was it. That was the reason why I left the first time, because I just you can't hang around in Switzerland if you can't work.
Oh, hell no. Well, as you know, I mean, I've worked in Switzerland. I know only too well how expensive it is. Oh, God, no.
Anyway, so that was how I came to the band. But then Alan brought me to the first band meeting, and I got to tell you, first time I walked in and met these guys, because I had already been in a lot of bands, been through a lot of stuff, been through record deals, been through a production deal with Paul Stanley, blah, blah, blah. I walked in the room, and I tell you, I just got this feeling, hey, these guys want to work. Yeah. These guys want to work. They're already somewhere, and they want to work. And we got there, met the guys. It was just, they were all like kind of glowing, They all looked like, to me, like rock stars, Every single one of them. We met in their pub. They had a pub. What was it called? I'll think of the name in a minute. Anyway, and so we had a couple of drinks, and we talked a little bit, and boom, right then up to the rehearsal room. Now I'm just, I just got there, and we're ready to work. A couple of drinks, and boom, got into the rehearsal room. And the band kicked in, and they just had like gear from hell. They were tight as hell. Everything sounded really good. I explained to them off the top which notes I'm not going to be able to hit, because I knew exactly what I couldn't do. Explained that to them, and and we just went through. They gave me the stuff to learn before I got there. Like I said, I had rehearsed it on my own, singing against the other singers on the CDs, and man, from the first time, I just felt so free, because I had been in all these projects with all these problems and all these personalities and all these characters. And now here's some guys who are really in the business, who've worked their asses off to get where they are, and they ain't messing around, And it just never changed after that. I can't remember any time with China when we didn't work. It was never, always fun. Always all the good times, always all the good stuff, but always a plan, always a working plan, always something going on. And I think we rehearsed for about a week and a half, and then we went on tour, and I think I did like 109 shows in a row with them.
Jesus.
And it was all over the place. I mean, we were just going all over, playing here, playing there. This night was great. That night was not so great. This night was better. This, back and forth, trying to figure it all out. And I exploded because I had been sort of compressed with all this. I don't know if you know how the business works, but a lot of people are always showcasing. Maybe you do a gig over here, you're doing a demo over here, you're working your day job, and blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden now we are full on just making rock and roll and playing. And I'm getting a chance to stretch out on stage. And I was, young. I was 20, 28, 29 then. And I just felt the freedom. I felt so free. And those first couple of shows, I mean, I feel sorry for the people who had to watch me, but I must have looked like some sort of, I don't know, some sort of Jack in the Box out there. I was just so happy, man. I was just so happy to be on stage, and they were so tight. The guys were so tight. They were even way back in those days. They were running some cool ways of doing their monitoring and their stuff, and they had some clever people working with them, and everything just for me was a big step up, So I went from sort of almost getting something there, and to all of a sudden just boom, out in front of a bunch of people every night, singing great songs. I mean, the first record and the second record, they had some great songs on them records.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, I bought the first album and still got it on vinyl, nice, and the second one nicely tucked away. I've always felt, personally speaking,
I'm so sad about that singer because Struby is his name, and I love this guy. We did a record together with Fernando Von Arp from Crocus called Metal Marathon.
Right.
So him and I worked together for 6 weeks in the studio, and this was way after the China thing was all gone.
Yeah.
And I just love the guy, but he just doesn't want to do it. He just doesn't want to do that metal thing. But the voice that he has on that first record, if you listen to it, like songs like Wild Jealousy.
Yeah.
It's like untouchable. It's so good, And but that's a strange thing when some people who have gifts, they just let them pass without realizing how special it was. And others, like I'll put myself in this category, who have had to really work hard. We appreciate it. And it makes us sad when I see a person with a gift just sort of like let it go.
Yeah.
Maybe
I can think of it, I could probably think of half a dozen singers like that who walked away from the business, and you think, or just disappeared into the ether, and you think, why? But I always feel that China, the success of the first two albums, and obviously there was an awful lot of airplay on MTV, the videos and all the rest of it, for some reason just never got to that next level where they deserved, and then they got sort of, as a band, almost got sort of overlooked when like Gotthard came into the picture and everything. And
well, maybe rightly so.
But what happened with the gap? There was a big gap between the album releases. Obviously, there was the live album with Mark back in about 2000 until obviously.
No, the live CD that's earlier. That's much earlier. That's 94.
Is it really?
Yeah.
And obviously, then there was a big gap, and then you also brought the best of out. I mean, why was there such a gap in the band's catalogue?
Well, first of all, what I remember going on at the time was the band was heavy in debt by the third record.
Right.
And we had, with the third record, not a lot of success with singles or any of that. And simultaneously, Nirvana dropped in and just changed every record company's thinking. And if you weren't grunge, and if you were costing us money, it was time for you to go. And that's exactly what happened to China after the third record. They just let us go. And
like so many great bands, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, great. But I mean, they let us go, and we didn't know what to do. So I couldn't stay in Switzerland with, like I said, I couldn't stay here without a working permission, without a job. China had no money to pay me anymore. There was, there was shows and stuff like that, but it's still, it wasn't running like it was, and we lost our momentum, as you say. And so I had to come back. I had to come back to New York, and then I moved out to L.A. And the guys, they ended up working with another guy for another record called Natural Groove.
Yeah.
Doug, which is actually, some people don't like that record, but I actually think it's pretty cool because this guy Doug was kind of ahead of his time with the way he sang. I like the way he sings, and I like the way when he plays some of those songs now at the shows, because they just sort of freshen up the show when you come in and all of a sudden you play a song from Natural Groove. It has like kind of a nice feeling to it. But that's exactly in a nutshell what happened. And then Gotthard, sorry, but my first show, now that you remind me, with China, Gotthard was the opener.
Right.
And I went after I heard this guy at Soundcheck, after I heard Steve at Soundcheck, I went into his dressing room and I said, man, you are amazing. Now what am I supposed to do? You know? And we just became friends. I just really respected him because they weren't called Gotthard then. I think they were called Crack. That was the name of the band. The record company made them change it, but still they were dirty. They were like a dirty, hard, heavy band, you know, with that voice on top, and it was just, I mean, they were a fresh wind. I remember that it was the Rock Palace in Biasca. Look at my mind, kicks and goes, and it was a great show, great night, but I'll never forget my own personal feelings, because I'm a guy, you know, I had Lenny Kravitz rehearsing in my house before he made it. You know, I've heard like great singers before they've gotten up there, and I know that feeling of like, oh my God, this guy, something's got to happen with him or there is no God. And that was my feeling with Steve Lee and Gotthard. I said, something's got to happen with these guys or it's just not right. And that's what happened. We had no funding, and they had BMG ready to roll out the red carpet for them. And plus they had Chris Von Rohr off the Crocus fame, who knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Doing like kind of what Tommy did to us, whipping them.
Yeah.
Whip it good, you know. But whipping us, I mean, whipping them, and those first couple records they're just sonically great. And they were great live, too, when you go to see them guys live. And I remember asking Steve, because I was backstage with them, and, you know, we were friends with the band, and they were good guys, because when we were China and we were really big and they were coming up, I mean, they used to hang around a lot and be friends, you know. And I remember asking Steve, I said, Steve, what's the secret, man? How do you sing so good? And he goes, Eric, you got to just love what you sing. And I tell you, I never heard it put so simple and so truthful. And then I thought about that, and I said, he is right. You know, he is right. The more you love something, the better you sing it. And that's just the way it is. And you know, and you can hear that in his voice. He really loves what he's doing. You know, they won people's hearts, and I think they with a very good record company, very good promotion staff, with a very good producer. They made a great start of their career right as China was disappearing, you know, and they never stopped. And even today, I went and saw them with the new singer. That was fantastic. I saw them with Alice Cooper, actually.
Okay. And
they were fantastic. The people loved them. But I don't know. China being overlooked, maybe. I don't know. It's an interesting question. I think it's all about songs and what you get out there, and then that triggers that triggers the help that you get from the industry. You know, if you got great songs, you know, and if you got a good product, then the industry gets motivated to help you, I believe, in this day and age. Anyway.
Of course, obviously, the industry has changed enormously, and obviously, you know, as
I feel sorry for him in a way.
Well, as I say, you know, I've said this on numerous occasions, both on the show and just chatting to people. You know,
once they had a BMW, now they're driving a Toyota. You know, it's like
yeah. How young bands can get started in the industry now? I mean, it is tough. It's hard work. I wouldn't, you know, I don't know what the answer is, because let's face it, as I said a million times, there's no A&R men pushing it. You know, it's mainly down to the band now, really to push it.
I think getting out there and pressing the flesh and being part of a real scene and really playing and really, you know, those guys are always going to get out there somehow because that's how they get their chops together. Putting a band together somehow on the internet it's not really. I don't know. Did you see that? Dave Grohl wrote some article all about that recently, and I read it. And he was so right, you know. It's like bands have to play in their garage. They have to suck.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah, and he was
great?
absolutely right. Absolutely.
And then, you know, now, sorry, but this is the guy from Nirvana talking. You know, you have to listen to what he says because it's, you know, the man has a right to talk. And what he was saying, it was so true because I did that. I mean, I played in the garage. We sucked. You know, we went out and played our first little gigs. But it's all of that which brings you guys together and gets people to know you, and that all that communication with people leads to the music actually being great in the end. You know, somehow, unless you're doing like a house track, which is still based on people coming together. You know, so I don't know. I have no solution. All I know is I could never see how anybody could possibly have a career without getting out there and playing, and, you know, like, not like a politician, but actually being part of the people and you know, feeling all of that. That's so important, I think.
So having said that, I take it obviously China are going to be out on the road then promoting the new album.
Oh man. Yeah, well, we're on a little fundraiser tour right now because we're all broke. So you're always broke after a record. When you got a record finished, you're broke. And right now we're doing that. We're doing some shows here in Switzerland, working for great people, and you know, we're actually playing the town where on Friday, the day the album is released, we're playing the Winterthur, which is the town where it all started for the band. You know, they all formed together in Winterthur. I met them in Winterthur. We always rehearsed in Winterthur, you know. And now we're going to play the day of the CD release there. And then we have a couple more gigs. We have a gig with Chakra. We're playing
fantastic.
Yeah, it's going to be great. They're great guys. And what else we got? We got a couple more shows. I think we have one China show where we're headlining. We have our release party coming up. We're going to play there. We're going to have some special guests, very special guests. And yeah, but then starting in January, we have some other stuff coming in, and I can't really announce anything right now because I've been told not to. But
you can tell me when I kill the microphone.
Yeah, right. Just I got something so cool that I'm almost sure that we're gonna have. That my hair is standing up right now as I'm not telling you. And if that happens, man, just, you know, like, I'd be really happy. So there's going to be some shows. We for next year we've already got like some good promoters calling us in, and we've had, which is really interesting, is a promoter who put us back together on the reunion. We played with Black Sabbath and Motley Crue and Motorhead at this Spirit of Rock festival. They called us up and asked us if we would how we got back together was they asked us if we would reunite to open up the festival.
Wow.
And you know, we were like, are you kidding me? Of course, you know. And so we got back together again after I don't know how many years, but Cloudy and I had been working together, so we weren't like strangers. And this guy who put us back together again, now he moved to the biggest promoter in Switzerland, right? The biggest. And he wasn't with the small one to begin with, but he moved up. And he just sent us messages because he feels kind of responsible for the band being back together again, because he literally is. If it wasn't for the show, we would never in this form be back together again. Okay. And now that we've released the best of Light Up the Dark, and now We Are the Stars, and he loves the new record. He got a copy of it from our PR people, and he loves the new record. And what's great about it is he's now feeling like, hey, these guys, they are working hard. They are trying to do it. Why don't I, you know? And so this is working for us now, because Claudio, the guitar player, always said that. He goes, "We need a record. We can't live on singles. You know, a rock band needs an album.
Yeah, yeah.
When you do an album, if we come back with a second album now, people will take us serious." Because the first record, you know, we did that. We did it on our own. We weren't planning on getting any airplay with it. You know, we just wanted to go out there. We knew the Crocus guys wanted to take us on the road, so we wanted it to be a kind of heavy record, but not too heavy. So, you know what I mean? And this record, we thought, okay, if we come out of this with our shirts on, you know, like if we don't lose the farm, if we get our money back, and if there's enough left over to start another one, we will start another one. And it's exactly the way it happened. We got all our money back, and then we had just enough to get started with this. Right. And then from there, we had to do shows, and because most of what we do, we take from the concerts and stuff. And it's just going in a good direction. That's all I got to say. And I'll tell you what, as soon as I know something, I can release it to you, I will exactly do that. I mean, it might be in a private message. I won't post it on your page.
No. You could drop me a mail. No, yes. Eric, all I can say is, it is such an immense pleasure to have you on the show. I say, yeah, you know what a fan of the band I am, and I'm just so pleased that you're back with a new album. And
well, you'll have your hard copy of the album soon. As soon as you type in your address, I will send this out to you tomorrow, so you have a hard copy of it. And I'll actually, it goes by. It's good to have the actual CD. It actually sounds better than the sound files. Like the MP3s. I'm sorry, but MP3s are not always as good as WAV files.
No. Oh, yeah. Oh, well, see, that could start for another hour's conversation. We'll save that for another. Well, all I can say is, Eric, I hope you have some real success with this album.
Me too. I do, but to be honest with you never know what's going to happen, so you got to enjoy the making of, and we did. And so, let's see where it goes. And it's just fun to be playing rock and roll. That's all I got to say.
Excellent. Eric St. Michaels, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you very much.